Good morning, Stewart's Chapel. This is Brother Don Pierson and Don Counts. We're at the Harris's home, and we appreciate their hospitality. We're in the book of Joel. One thing that I've been wanting to say each time, and I keep forgetting, so I want to start out with it. There is some debate. Some people that are studiers of revival say that would list the book of Joel as one of those revivals. But then there's another group of those who are studiers of revival that don't list the book of Joel as one of the revivals, biblical revivals. I'm of the second group. I would not list the book of Joel as one of the biblical revivals, and let me tell you why. The book of Joel is a call for God's people. The first chapter lays out the gravity of the situation. Chapter 2 is going to call for a very specific response because of what God is doing among God's people because of their sin. Chapter 3 is about what would be or could be or should be if chapter 2's action is taken. The problem is historically there's no evidence that they do it. So to count the book of Joel as one of the biblical revivals, in my opinion, would be an error because there really is no evidence that it happened. Just because the prophet delivered it does not mean it happened. And that would not be the first time in history where God sent a word and called for revival from his people where his people didn't respond. You see, it's the same thing with 2 Chronicles 7, 13, and 14. Just because God tells you what to do in 2 Chronicles 7, 14 does not mean God's people do it. And the evidence is all around us. So let's go to Joel chapter 1, verse 8 through 12. Lament like a virgin girded with sackcloth for the husband of her youth. In other words, this is a young girl who has waited and waited and waited for her marriage to a man that was chosen, but it doesn't happen. He's taken away from her. The marriage of her dreams and of her love is not happening. So he tells the people of God, you need to lament like that kind of a woman. The grain offering and the drink offering have been cut off from the house of the Lord. The priests mourn who minister to the Lord. That's kind of actually a sad verse, by the way. You're going to hear that several times in the first two chapters. It's sad. You see, there's no offerings, and the priests live off the offerings. The priests' reason for lamenting and mourning and being in grief is not because of the sin of God's people. They mourn because there's no offering. That's pretty sad when you think about it. The field is wasted, the land mourns, and the grain is ruined, and the new wine is dried up, the oil fails. Be ashamed, you farmers. Wail, we've heard that word before. Wail, you vine dressers. We heard the cry for the command to wail for the drunkards, and now it's those who keep the vineyards are to wail. Wail, you vineyards, for the wheat and the barley, because the harvest of the field has perished. The vine has dried up, and the fig tree has withered. The pomegranate tree, the palm tree also, and the apple tree. All the trees of the field are withered. Surely joy has withered away from the sons of man. A lot of loss a lot of loss in these few verses. The women have lost their husbands. There's the loss of the ministers and the priests. The land even mourns because there's a loss of the ability to produce. The farmers, everybody, there's a loss everywhere. Everything is withered up, dried up, stripped, and gone. But the biggest loss in these verses is that there is a loss of joy. Joy has withered away, like a plant that has been clipped or cut or diseased. It has died. It has withered away. It has melted away. Joy is gone. I made these notes about this verse. Verse 8 is all about what could be but won't be. Verse 9 is about what should be but can't be. Verse 10 and 11 and 12 are about the natural responses when what could be won't be and what should be can't be. There should be grief. There should be a sense of shame. And there's no room for joy. What a book to study, huh? Would you agree? Not the kind of quiet time you want in the morning and go through the rest of your day with, right? Not something that you're going to go and sing in, not one of those verses you're going to be memorizing or quoting. As Christians, and I mean me, we can be very superficial, can't we? We like verses. In fact, we will choose verses. We like preachers. We will choose preachers who say what we want and give us what we want and keep us smiling and happy. But in a day of judgment, is that really what God's people need? I got a feeling that Joel was probably a very lone voice. I think that's one of the reasons why God's people didn't do what they were supposed to do when they heard that lone voice. You see, the lone voice is really not Joel's voice, is it? Remember what Joel's name is? Yahweh is God. The first words of the first chapter and verse 1 is, "Hear what the Lord has to say." God always speaks truth. Would you agree? What kind of truth is He speaking into your life today? Where's your joy, my friend? Love you, Stewart's Chapel.